Hello, I hope you and yours are well today. I'm Evelyn and I welcome you to St Margaret's Lent video and telephone service for this, the 26th of March. Reverend Maggie is still on sick leave, so we ask you to keep her in your prayers. We are continuing with the Eco Congregation Scotland videos, and this is week 5 of Lent. Unfortunately, they have not produced a video for Palm Sunday, which is next week, the 2nd of April, so there will be no video or telephone service for next week. We're sorry for that. We will be back for Easter on the 9th of April, so I hope you join us then. God bless you until we meet again.
Ezekiel addresses God ecumenically, possibly with names from two Hebrew traditions, Sovereign Lord, names by then carrying powerful layers of meaning. But what they add up to in this story of hope beyond too late is a God who commissions, delegates, gives permission for the fruitful and life-giving relationship of human beings, literally the children of the soil, with the family of creation. A God who asks us to do what we cannot do, and yet not to attempt it alone. The bones in the valley, though, are as far as they could be from that, literally disconnected, and since they're so very, very dry, beyond even those fruitful processes of decay which enable the life of the world to cycle on. We too have many names for God, and it's a blessing to be able to work across the spectrum of the church wildlife with such diverse behaviour and plumage. And although the lovely diversity is overlaid by scandalous and formal divisions, we can enjoy a shared rainbow of response to the common threats. My dream is that we might look on the treasures of our faith with the grace of the Jerusalem Spring, that earliest Christian community who held all things in common, so that whether it's from the greatest or the least, to the most venerable or the most innovative, we may, by the grace of God, choose the right direction for our time and situation, rather than what was merely dominant in a previous generation. Intimidation is no basis for faith. As eco-chaplain, I make choices from valid options. I use the criterion of desperation from the book of Revelation. What is the Spirit saying to the churches? Or even, what is the wind blowing into the churches? How about the realization that your net zero ambition can give hope to others? That it's a mission initiative as least as much as an environmental one. That discipleship implies active protection of creation from greed and indifference. The wind, as we heard, blows where they will, and so does the chosen bias of your favourite Bible when conveying whom it is that God requires Ezekiel as Ben Adam, as the child of earth, to address, whom to enlist in God's powerful word, whom to empower and enable. Prophesy to the Spirit, prophesy to the wind, prophesy to the breath. Different versions, but the same word. Which would you choose if it fell to you to do the reading? To preach to the Spirit, to the breath, to the wind? What connects you most deeply? To whom? Because you need a who to preach to. To whom do we turn when we discover that for all our wealth and technology we are no more connected than dry bones strewn across the valley? So, Spirit, with overtones of personality and intentionality. Wind, that ceaseless circulation of the planet which perhaps now powers whatever device you are viewing this on. The winds which circulate, temperature and moisture, whose continued friendship, you might say, we rely on. The winds who can be fierce, especially when provoked.
And I have to say that as I stand here today, I don't think I've ever felt as sad or as angry about the lost decades that we spent bickering and arguing about whether climate change was real or not, whether it was caused by humans or not, whether it was bad or not, whether we should do something about it or not, because it is clearly here now.
And breath. Breath, our constant visceral dependence on green things. Breath, which we sometimes struggle for. Feel what's happening as you breathe in, taking creation into your body, that you might continue to live. The bones don't get it. Ezekiel's message to his people is one of indecent and unreasonable hope in face of the annihilating burden of exile, which gives every good reason for despair. It is too late. There is nothing we can do. So God puts the prophet into this creepy story to change hearts and minds where facts and figures just cannot. And maybe that's the scariest of all, that we had settled down into life without hope. It's a tale of the rebuilding and repurposing through awareness of the layering and interweaving of the relationships that hold life together. The intimate biology of it, how one bone relates to another. Bone to sinews, sinews to muscles, muscles to skin, and then more. How human life relates to the real, not really imaginary powers of creation. There is nothing abstract here. Even when the bodies have been brought together, it's a final personal outreach to the four winds, to the breath of earth self that brings life and liberating purpose. Creation addressed in person for the healing of the people's hope. And then it's not God's voice, but a human voice that has to befriend creation's spirit, breath, wind. If people are to be whole, that is the word of the Lord. And the concluding comment of the Pope's film, The Letter, could be a commentary on this story. That there can be no renewal of humanity's relationship with nature without a renewal of humanity itself. Though even that acknowledges our alienation from what we share, down to the building blocks of ourselves with the life of the earth. We cannot simply go on marching on like a pile of bones in empire's new clothes of disconnection, entitlement, and arrogance. With whom then do we need relationship, partnership, kinship to embody what God calls the prophet? The earthness of humanity. Without whom are we incomplete? The windness of the Spirit, the breathness of the wind. And is there anyone else to whom we neglect to call on and befriend? Maybe the trees and the green things by whose breathing we are sustained. And can we still do that? Or as 1.5 degrees of warming approaches in the lifetime of all of you, will it be, as the scientists at COP26 suggested, will it be too late? In this creepy story, starting with the ultimate disconnection, God comes to the fore as the guide and inspiration for our small stitches in the reweaving of a web of life unraveled. God who, without denying disaster, tragedy or threat, redefines what is too far gone, what is too late. Though as Marx almost said, it's when we have nothing to lose that we discover what an ecological conversion might mean. Getting there just in time is wonderful, unless you let that become your last chance to change nothing at all. Getting there far too late is something else. And Jesus doesn't pretend there isn't a too late. Remember the story of the unfruitful fig tree, the final comment, if the tree doesn't bear fruit after being given every chance, you can root it out. Last chances are last chances, save for something completely different. And Jesus does not say in the story of the raising of Lazarus that everything's going to be all right. Instead, that becomes one of our faith's resources for when too late really hits home. Even if you die, in Christ the end both is and is not the end. Too late is too late, but freed from what might have been, the story continues. Though you die, you live, though the sort of living you do having died, or with the consciousness of mortality, is something completely different. With regard to our response to the pile-up of crises of justice, which we shorthand as climate, and all their knock-on effects of human migration, the destabilisation of societies as much as ecosystems, option one, just in time, as we know it, is off the menu. It has to be. And that now finally has graduated to being the good news, the truth in love, living with too late. And while so many scientists, statesmen and preachers rightly point out the value of every small intervention at every scale, which will indeed make a difference to the speed and depth of the crisis, nonetheless, it does seem, for now, by standards current in our lifetime, just a little too late. And yet, like Jesus himself, followers of Christ can be prepared to go there, even if it stinks. John's Gospel is powerful but not tasteful about the most painful things. Pain and bereavement take us beyond good taste. The abrupt finality of death knocks most of us into a different mode of life, a different mode of making sense, and the strongly supported warnings of scientists should do something similar in dialogue with the resources of faith. Now, it may be the way that translators have leaned into the story, but Jesus' comments on the fatal illness of his friend Lazarus at first seemed to me to be an almost mercenary approach to suffering, a shameless chance to score mission brownie points. If Jesus had set out and healed him in good time, then all would have been well, and though they might have praised God about it, everyone would have carried on regardless. This illness does not lead to death, rather it is for God's glory, but then it goes pear-shaped. Where's this glory when it's too late? In God with us in the mess. That's where. And it's clear from what we hear of Jesus' deeply emotional reaction, both that he cares for his friend and that the brutality of sudden death gets to him too. Now, it might seem mercenary to exploit this, but why not? If death or a tragedy that happens anyway provides the circumstance in which faith is seen to help, is it not more selfish and less loving to conceal that spiritual bonus? I remember the drop-in, frequented mostly by homeless or lonely folk on Sunday afternoons. In my church in Brighton, there were some tragedies there. Ex-army men with post-traumatic stress, drinkers who came in for a cup of tea. We heard of more than one regular who was found dead on the streets. And quite a few of these friends asked us for prayer and showed every sign of being happy that a wee prayer service took place in a side chapel when drop-in was running. Some came in and others didn't, and one of those was Bob. For Bob, it was important that when someone was offering help, they were open about why they did it, or as he himself put it, vicars in disguise, they're the worst. Which, thank you Bob, always reminds me that if we do find motivation in our faith, and in a love which that faith should cultivate for all God's creatures, and also for the totality of the web of life with predators and prey, food and eaters, plants making oxygen, animals like us breathing it, then whilst it's never right to force that motivation on others, nor is it helpful or loving to conceal it. Faith does me good, but it might do others better. Can your faith as a child of earth do earth good? When we take our part in the actions, commitments and movements to which we're called in response to the climate crisis, which are a significant development beyond more comfortable and less obviously urgent stuff, that is when our faith and goodwill bring or support the enrichment of hope, even beyond what we thought was too late, even beyond what is too late. And as we pull our bones together and totter out of the tomb to be church in the climate crisis, that's our task for the next few decades, our mission, our witness, our discipleship. Get on with it.